I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding like a jackhammer as I took in the scene before me. My own bed, our bed, wrecked and tangled like a battlefield. And there she was, Amanda, half-dressed, scrambling to cover herself while some shirtless idiot fumbled with his pants next to her. It felt like my soul had been ripped out of my chest. What the hell is going on here? I roared, barely able to keep myself from lunging at him. Amanda didn't even look ashamed, just annoyed that I'd interrupted her little fantasy. Dave, calm down. You weren't supposed to be home, she snapped, as if I was the one intruding in my own house. Her lover didn't say a word, just ducked his head and bolted past me like a coward, leaving his shoes behind. I could hear the sound of the car screeching away outside. I didn't bother chasing him, my focus was on her, on the woman I thought I knew. How long? I demanded, my voice cracking with betrayal. How long have you been screwing him in my bed? Amanda rolled her eyes like I was some kind of idiot. Does it matter? You're never here anyway. Always working late. Always too busy to notice me. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe the audacity. So you thought it was okay to just bring some random guy into our house? While our kids are upstairs sleeping. She scoffed, finally standing up and grabbing a robe, tying it around her like she deserved some sort of dignity. Relax, Dave. The kids aren't here. They're with Mom for the weekend. The relief that washed over me was short-lived. I felt sick to my stomach, rage boiling in my veins. You think that makes it better? You think that excuses this betrayal? She smirked, brushing past me like I was nothing more than an obstacle in her way. You were always too weak to satisfy me anyway. He knew how to take care of me. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't stand being in that room another second. I stormed downstairs, hands shaking as I tried to catch my breath. I had to think straight. I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. But before I could get my bearings, I heard the unmistakable sound of my car starting up, the car I paid for, the one Amanda barely knew how to drive. I rushed to the window just in time to see her peeling out of the driveway. Gone. With my car. And God knows what else she planned to take from me. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her walk all over me. She wanted a war? She was going to get one. I stood there, breathless and boiling with anger, staring at the taillights of my own car vanishing down the street. My mind raced, struggling to process the insanity that just erupted in my own home. My wife, the woman I devoted my life to, just wrecked our family and drove off with my car like I was some insignificant piece of trash. I yanked out my phone, fingers trembling, and dialed her number. Voicemail. Of course. I tried again. Nothing. I fought the urge to throw my phone across the room. If I didn't think straight, I'd lose control. No, I couldn't afford to lose it. I needed answers, and I needed to know where the hell she was going. A thought struck me. I could use the car's tracking app. I had set it up ages ago when I first bought the car, mostly for safety reasons. Never did I think I'd be tracking down my own wife after she just screwed another man in my bed. I pulled up the app and waited for the location to load, pacing like a madman, blood boiling with every passing second. Finally, the map appeared. My car was stopped at a gas station about 2 miles away. Perfect. She hadn't gotten far. I grabbed my spare keys and jumped into her old minivan, the one I'd been fixing up for months since she always complained about it breaking down. I floored it, the engine protesting but giving me enough speed to catch up. The gas station loomed ahead, and sure enough, there it was, my car parked at the pump. I couldn't see her inside. I pulled up next to it, scanning the area. Suddenly, I saw her walking out of the convenience store, coffee in hand, like she hadn't just destroyed my life 10 minutes ago. I jumped out and blocked her path before she could reach the car. She froze, wide-eyed for a moment, before narrowing her gaze in pure annoyance. "What the hell are you doing here?" she barked, as if I was the one in the wrong. "I could ask you the same damn thing. You're seriously just gonna steal my car and run off after what you just did?" I snapped, fighting to keep my voice from breaking. She scoffed, pushing past me to unlock the door. I slammed my hand against the window, stopping her from opening it. "You don't get to just walk away from this, Amanda. You think you can screw around behind my back, tear apart our family, and just leave?" She glared at me, that same infuriating smirk curling her lips. "Oh, grow up, Dave. You're acting pathetic. This is why I did it. You're too damn weak, too boring. I wanted a real man, not some whiny loser who's never around." Her words hit like a sledgehammer to the chest, but I refused to let her see me break. A real man? That jackass couldn't even look me in the eye before bolting out of the house like a coward. "You threw away your family for that piece of garbage?" She laughed, actually laughed in my face. You wouldn't understand. You never did. He's everything you're not: passionate, exciting, unpredictable. You wouldn't know passion if it slapped you in the face. My fist clenched, but I forced myself to breathe. Losing control wouldn't fix this. You're unbelievable. I worked my ass off for this family, did everything you asked. And this is how you repay me? By screwing some lowlife in our bed. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic. You think I owe you loyalty just because you brought home a paycheck? Get real, Dave. You earned enough, and I'm done pretending. Pretending? You think I didn't notice? All the late nights at the gym? You didn't even bother to hide it properly. Your phone glued to your hand, giggling at texts you wouldn't let me see. Did you really think I was that clueless? Her face twisted with irritation. Well, you never cared enough to ask. Always too busy. You didn't even notice when I stopped wearing my ring weeks ago. I couldn't take it anymore. I ripped the keys out of her hand and unlocked the door. Get out of my car. Now. She crossed her arms, stubborn as ever. Like hell I will. This car belongs to both of us. Not after what you pulled. You want freedom? Fine. But you're not taking my car with you. Walk if you're so damn independent. She hesitated, probably realizing that fighting me here wouldn't get her anywhere. Finally, she scoffed and tossed the coffee cup to the ground, liquid splattering across my shoes. Screw you, Dave. You'll regret this. I didn't care. I just needed her gone. She stormed off down the road, cursing me under her breath, while I watched to make sure she didn't double back. Once she was out of sight, I leaned against the car, chest heaving, trying to force my mind to process what just happened. The anger didn't subside. If anything, it burned hotter. She was going to pay for this. Taking my kids, trashing our marriage, disrespecting me to my face. I wasn't going to let her walk away like a victim. I needed a plan. I grabbed my phone and started making calls to my lawyer, to her family, to anyone who might know more about her secret life. The more I dug, the more furious I became. And I knew one thing for sure: Amanda wasn't getting away with this betrayal. Not while I still had breath in my lungs. I sat behind the wheel, knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel, my mind spinning faster than the engine could rev. I couldn't just drive off like nothing happened. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed to make sure my kids were safe. Amanda may have been reckless with our marriage, but I'd be damned if I let her drag Emily and Jacob into this mess. First things first, I needed to know where she was planning to go. I glanced at her phone still sitting on the passenger seat. She must have dropped it during the fight. I picked it up, hesitating for just a second before unlocking it. The passcode hadn't changed, same one we set up years ago. Stupid mistake, Amanda. I pulled up her recent messages, scrolling through threads filled with lies. There it was, the guy from the gym. His name was Nick. Just seeing his name made my blood boil. They had been texting nonstop for weeks, sending each other pictures, talking about how he made her feel alive, and how she couldn't stand being stuck with that boring loser anymore. My stomach churned. That boring loser. Me. The guy who worked late so she wouldn't have to stress about bills. The guy who took care of the kids so she could have her me time. The guy who thought being loyal and dependable was enough. But the most gut-wrenching part? She had told him that she was planning to leave me, take the kids, and start a new life together. She had it all mapped out. No hesitation. No guilt. Just pure selfishness wrapped up in self-justification. One text caught my eye. Nick, can't wait to have you all to myself. Did you tell him yet? Amanda, nah. I'm gonna take the kids to mom's first. Dave's too dense to figure it out. Once I'm out, he can go cry to his pathetic buddies. That was the last straw. I felt something inside me snap, like a chain breaking loose. She thought I was dense? That I wouldn't fight for my own kids? That I'd just roll over and let her ruin everything without a fight? Hell no. I glanced up just in time to see my lawyer's name flashing on the screen. Perfect timing. I hit the speaker button, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Dave, what's going on? You called me 3 times. Mark's voice sounded concerned. I need your help. Amanda just left me. Took the kids to her mom's. She's been cheating on me for months and planning to take everything. I need to know what my options are. I'm not letting her get away with this. Mark sighed, already processing the situation. All right. First thing, do not let her take the kids out of state. We need to file an emergency custody order to make sure she doesn't run. Collect any evidence you can: texts, emails, anything that proves she's been unfaithful and planning to leave. I have her phone. Plenty of evidence here, I replied. Good. Make copies of everything and bring it to my office tomorrow morning. In the meantime, go to her mom's and make sure the kids are safe. Don't let her pull any stunts. Legally, you still have equal custody rights until a court says otherwise. I thanked him and ended the call, determination hardening into a plan. I wasn't just going to sit around and let her ruin my life. I needed to fight smart, not just with anger, but with cold, calculated moves. I wasn't about to let some cocky gym rat and his manipulative girlfriend take my kids away. I put her phone down, determined not to let it distract me. With a deep breath, I pulled out of the gas station, driving toward her mom's house on the other side of town. The streetlights blurred by as memories flooded my mind. Family dinners, birthday parties, all those moments that I thought were real. They felt tainted now, poisoned by her lies and betrayal. I pulled up a block away from her mom's house, not wanting to make a scene right outside. I needed to approach this smartly. As I walked up the sidewalk, I saw Amanda's mom, Nancy, standing on the porch, smoking a cigarette. She spotted me, flicking the cigarette to the ground, eyes widening with surprise. "Dave? What are you doing here?" she asked cautiously. "Looking for my kids." "Where are they?" I demanded, not bothering to hide my anger. She hesitated, glancing back into the house. "They're inside. Amanda brought them here earlier. Said she needed time to figure things out." I took a step closer, voice dropping. "Did she mention why? Did she tell you about her little affair?" Nancy's face went pale. "What? No. I thought she just needed space. You two seemed fine last week." "Fine? She's been screwing some guy from the gym behind my back. She planned to take the kids and leave me without even saying goodbye. I'm not letting that happen." Nancy swallowed, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't know. Amanda didn't tell me any of that." I shook my head, my jaw clenched. "I just want to see my kids." Reluctantly, she stepped aside, letting me into the house. I made my way to the living room, where Emily and Jacob were curled up on the couch watching cartoons. Relief washed over me seeing their innocent faces, safe and completely unaware of the chaos their mother had unleashed. "Dad!" Jacob shouted, leaping off the couch and running into my arms. Emily followed, wrapping herself around my waist. For a moment, I could breathe again. I hugged them tight, fighting the lump in my throat. "Hey, guys. I missed you." Jacob looked up at me with his big, curious eyes. "Where's Mommy?" Before I could answer, Amanda barged through the door, fury blazing in her eyes. "What the hell are you doing here, Dave?" I stood tall, meeting her glare with unyielding resolve. "Picking up my kids. You want to screw around and play house with your new boyfriend? Fine. But you're not taking them with you." Her face twisted with indignation, but I didn't care. For once, I wasn't backing down. I was going to fight for my kids, my dignity, and every damn thing she tried to take from me. She sneered, folding her arms. "You can't just take them. They're mine too." "Maybe. But you lost the right to dictate everything the moment you decided to wreck our family. You're not in charge here anymore, Amanda. I'll see you in court if I have to." I couldn't afford to lose control now. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for my kids and their future. And I wasn't about to let Amanda's selfishness tear us apart. Amanda's mouth hung open, her face flushing red as the reality of my words sank in. She didn't expect me to fight back. She thought I'd just crumble and let her walk all over me. Well, not anymore. I wasn't the same passive fool she thought she could manipulate. I was done being the nice guy. "You're not taking them," she spat, her voice low and venomous, glancing at her mom as if looking for backup. "You think you can just barge in here and rip them away from me?" I stayed calm, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose my temper. "I'm not ripping them away. I'm their father, and they deserve to be with someone who actually gives a damn about them, not someone too busy chasing some lowlife from the gym." Nancy's eyes widened, and she glanced nervously between us, clearly realizing she was caught in the crossfire. Amanda shot her mother a glare, clearly daring her to pick a side. But for once, Nancy didn't rush to defend her daughter. Maybe she finally saw the truth. Amanda pushed past me, grabbing her phone from the coffee table. "You're not taking them. I'll call the cops if I have to." "Go ahead," I shot back. "I'll be happy to explain why their mother has been cheating for months, abandoned her husband, and tried to steal the kids. I've got the messages, Amanda. All of them. How do you think that's going to look in court?" For the first time, fear flickered across her face. Good. She knew I wasn't bluffing. Her arrogance melted, replaced by a simmering frustration. "You don't understand. You were never there. I had to do everything on my own. I deserved to be happy." I couldn't believe how warped her sense of reality was. "Happy? You think lying and betraying your family is the way to happiness? You don't even care about the damage you've done. You just wanted something new and exciting, and you didn't give a damn about how it would destroy us." She hesitated, like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. Finally, she shot me a cold, bitter look. "Fine. You want to be the hero, Dad? Take them. But don't think for a second I'm giving up on custody. You're not taking them away from me permanently." I looked at her, almost pitying how delusional she sounded. She thought she could still control the narrative, still play the victim. Not this time. Not after what she put me through. I crouched down to Emily and Jacob, forcing a smile despite the storm raging inside me. "Hey, how about we go grab some ice cream? I think we could all use a treat." Their faces lit up, completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding around them. I could feel Amanda's glare on my back, but I ignored her, focusing solely on the kids. I wasn't about to let her ruin their happiness too. As I ushered them outside, I heard Nancy calling after me. "Dave, wait." I turned, and she looked genuinely remorseful. I had no idea. "I'm sorry. For everything." I just nodded, not bothering with more words. Apologies wouldn't fix this mess. I buckled the kids into the car, and as I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Amanda standing on the porch, arms crossed, watching us leave. Her face was a twisted mask of resentment and frustration. Once we were far enough away, I pulled over into a quiet park and took a moment to breathe. I needed to keep a level head. The next steps had to be smart and calculated. I called Mark again, updating him on the situation. "She let you take the kids?" Mark sounded surprised. "She didn't really have a choice." I made it clear I wasn't backing down, I replied, trying to mask the exhaustion in my voice. "Good. Now listen, we need to file for temporary custody as soon as possible. You have the messages as evidence, right?" "Yeah." I took screenshots and saved them to my phone. "Perfect. We'll use that to demonstrate her instability and infidelity." Courts take parental conduct seriously, especially when it shows a disregard for family values. Stay calm and don't provoke her. Let me handle the legal side. Just keep the kids safe and away from any conflict. I thanked him and hung up, my hands still shaking from the rush of adrenaline. Emily looked up at me from the back seat, her little face filled with concern. "Daddy? Are you okay?" I forced a smile, not wanting to worry her. "Yeah, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. We're just going on a little adventure." She grinned, but Jacob stayed quiet, like he could sense something was wrong. Kids were more perceptive than we gave them credit for. I had to protect them from this nightmare, no matter what. We headed to the ice cream parlor, and for a moment, the normalcy helped calm my nerves. Watching my kids laugh and smear chocolate on their faces made me feel something close to peace. But it didn't last. My phone buzzed, Amanda again. I hesitated, then picked up, bracing myself for more of her venom. "You think this is over?" she snarled. "You can't just take my kids and act like I'm the bad guy." "I'm not acting. You did this to yourself, Amanda. You made your choice when you betrayed us. Now I'm making mine to protect my kids from your reckless behavior." She let out a bitter laugh. "You think you're so noble, don't you? Playing the perfect dad. You never even saw how miserable I was. You didn't care." "I cared more than you ever knew," I shot back, my voice cracking. "I worked myself to the bone for this family. I thought I was enough. But you? You just wanted to live in some fantasy where your happiness was the only thing that mattered. Well, congratulations, you got it. Now live with it." There was a moment of silence on the other end, and I almost thought she might apologize. But instead, she just whispered, "You'll regret this." "I'm not done fighting." She hung up, leaving me staring at the phone with a mix of anger and disbelief. She really thought she still held the upper hand. But I was done being her puppet. I was done being the clueless husband. Looking at my kids, I knew I couldn't let this toxic woman drag them into her selfish mess. I was going to fight with every ounce of strength I had. Not just for my pride, but for them. They deserved better than her chaos. And as I sat there, plotting my next move, I knew one thing for certain: Amanda had underestimated me. She thought I'd break and beg her to come back. Instead, I was gearing up for the battle of a lifetime. After the call with Amanda, I sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the phone screen. My heart still pounded like a war drum, but there was something else now, a fierce determination I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just going to let her bulldoze through my life and take everything. I was going to fight back, and I was going to win. Once the kids finished their ice cream, I drove back home. The house felt different, empty, cold, like a place that had lost its soul. I put the kids to bed, giving them extra long hugs, whispering reassuring words even though they didn't know why I was being so clingy. Once they were asleep, I made myself a coffee and sat down at the dining table, Amanda's phone still in my hand. I knew I had to gather as much evidence as possible before she made any moves. She'd already threatened to call the cops, and I wasn't about to give her an opening to paint me as the bad guy. I plugged her phone into my laptop and transferred every text, every photo, every voice memo I could find. I wasn't just preparing for a fight. I was arming myself with ammunition. As I sifted through the messages again, I noticed something I hadn't seen before, a string of bank transactions linked to a hidden PayPal account. Curious, I dug deeper, tracing payments made to hotels, restaurants, and some shady online subscriptions. My stomach turned as I realized just how far her betrayal had gone. She wasn't just spending money on herself, she was funding her affair with her savings. Fury bubbled up like molten lava. I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. Not only was she cheating on me, but she was using our hard-earned money to pamper her boy toy. My hand shook as I saved the evidence and made a list of every suspicious transaction. This wasn't just infidelity anymore. It was theft. And I was going to make damn sure she paid for it. My phone buzzed again. Mark's number flashed on the screen. I picked up, doing my best to keep my voice steady. Dave, I've been thinking. Given the situation, it might be wise to file for a financial audit. If she's been using joint funds to support her affair, that will work heavily in your favor during custody hearings, he advised. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I already found some transactions linked to a hidden PayPal account. Hotel bills, dinners, even some weird subscriptions. It's all there. Good work. Keep those records safe. Bring everything to my office tomorrow. The more proof we have of her reckless spending and infidelity, the stronger our case will be. After hanging up, I continued my digital digging. I wasn't just stopping at her phone. I went through our shared bank statements, old emails, even social media messages. The more I found, the clearer the picture became. Amanda had been planning this escape for months, setting up a financial cushion to live her fantasy life without me. My mind raced as I thought about the next steps. I needed to cover my bases, make sure she couldn't accuse me of anything to twist the story in her favor. I backed up every piece of evidence onto a USB drive and secured it in the safe. Just as I was finishing up, a loud banging rattled the front door. My heart leapt into my throat. I glanced at the time, 2 a.m. Who the hell could it be? My gut told me to be cautious, so I checked the peephole before opening it. To my surprise, it was Leah, Amanda's sister. I hesitated, wondering why she'd show up at this hour. Slowly, I unlocked the door and opened it just enough to see her face. What do you want? I asked, wary and tired. She looked stressed, her eyes darting around like she was being followed. Can I come in? Please. Against my better judgment, I let her inside, locking the door behind her. She looked at me with a mix of guilt and desperation. I heard about what happened. Amanda called me, freaking out. Said you took the kids and threatened to keep them from her. Leah started. Did she bother mentioning why? Did she mention the guy she's been screwing in our bed? Or how she tried to take off with my car? I snapped, unable to hide my bitterness. Leah looked uncomfortable, but nodded. She told me some of it. Look, I'm not here to take sides. I didn't know it was this bad. I thought you guys were solid. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, well, she made sure to keep her little fantasy life separate from reality. Now she's trying to paint me as the villain. I'm not letting her get away with it. Leah hesitated, biting her lip. There's something you should know. Amanda's been talking to a lawyer for weeks. She was planning to file for full custody and accuse you of neglect. Said you were always too busy with work to be a good dad. A chill ran down my spine. That scheming witch had been plotting this from the start, building a case against me while I was busy keeping the household afloat. She's not getting away with it, I growled. I've got enough evidence to show the judge exactly what kind of mother she's been. She thinks she's clever, but she's not half as smart as she thinks. Leah shifted uncomfortably, as if she was unsure whether to say something. I gave her a pointed look, and she finally sighed. Look, I know Amanda's messed up, but she's my sister. Just don't hurt her. Please. I clenched my jaw, barely containing my frustration. Hurt her? After what she's done to me? To the kids? She's lucky I haven't pressed charges yet. I just want to protect my family. I'll do whatever it takes. Leah didn't respond, just gave me a sad nod and left without another word. As I closed the door behind her, I couldn't shake the feeling that Amanda was going to make this even uglier. She wouldn't go down without a fight. She was too proud, too stubborn to admit she was wrong. But I wasn't about to let her win. I had the truth on my side, and I was going to fight like hell to make sure the court saw it. My kids deserved better than being stuck with a lying, manipulative mother who put her own desires above their well-being. As the night stretched on, I prepared for battle, gathering documents, making notes, and planning every move. I wasn't just fighting for my rights as a father. I was fighting to save my children from the toxic chaos Amanda was trying to drag them into. And as I looked at their peaceful, sleeping faces, I made a silent vow. I wasn't going to let Amanda take them away from me. Not now, not ever. The next morning hit me like a freight train. I hadn't slept a wink, too wired from adrenaline and fear of what was coming. Amanda hadn't called again since that last, venomous phone call. I knew it was the calm before the storm. She was plotting, waiting for the right moment to strike. I made breakfast for the kids, trying to act normal despite the chaos in my head. They ate their pancakes blissfully unaware, talking about cartoons and school projects. It hurt, knowing their little world was on the brink of shattering. I couldn't let Amanda's selfishness ruin their lives. Once they were settled, I gathered the evidence into a neat folder: texts, bank statements, screenshots, even receipts from hotels. Mark was right. If I wanted to win, I needed to be methodical. I wasn't going to let emotions cloud my focus. After dropping the kids off at school, I headed straight to Mark's office. When I walked in, Mark was already waiting, papers spread across his desk. He glanced up, giving me a firm nod. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "Feel like it too," I replied, sinking into the chair. "I've got everything. Texts, financial transactions, proof she's been draining our savings to fund her little fantasy." He nodded approvingly, taking the USB drive from me. "Good. This is exactly what we need. I've already drafted the petition for emergency custody. We'll argue that her actions demonstrate instability and poor parental judgment." I gritted my teeth. "She's been planning this for months, Mark. She thought she could just uproot the kids and run off with that loser. I'm not letting it happen." Mark gave me a hard look. "You're doing the right thing. Family courts don't take kindly to parents who prioritize their own desires over their children's well-being. But be prepared, she's going to fight dirty. She'll try to paint you as neglectful or abusive." I let out a bitter laugh. Neglectful? I worked my ass off to provide for them while she was out screwing around. I never laid a hand on her or the kids. She's the one who abandoned us. Mark's expression softened. "I know, but accusations like that can stick, even without evidence. Just keep your cool. No matter what she says or does, don't let her bait you into losing your temper." I knew he was right, but it felt impossible to stay calm when everything I'd built was at risk. My whole life was collapsing, and the person responsible was the one I trusted most. "Court hearing is scheduled for next week," Mark informed me. "Until then, keep the kids with you. If Amanda tries to take them, call the police. Your emergency custody filing protects you." I nodded, trying to absorb everything. Mark gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder before I left. As I drove back home, my phone buzzed with a text from Leah. "Leah, Amanda's furious. She's talking about filing a restraining order against you. Be careful." Of course, she was trying to paint herself as the victim, like I was some kind of monster. I ignored the message, too drained to respond. Let her play her games. I wasn't backing down. The rest of the week passed in a blur of preparations, documenting every interaction, taking notes, building my case. Amanda didn't show up at the house, and part of me hoped she'd just give up and disappear. But I knew better. She was biding her time, waiting to strike when it hurt most. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. I dressed in my best suit, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Mark met me at the courthouse, carrying a thick stack of documents. My stomach churned as we walked inside, the weight of the moment pressing down like an iron vise. I spotted Amanda in the hallway, leaning against the wall with that smug, self-righteous look plastered on her face. Beside her stood Nick, the gym rat, trying to look intimidating with his tattooed arms crossed. I ignored them, not giving her the satisfaction of a reaction. The bailiff called us in, and we took our places on opposite sides of the courtroom. The judge, an older woman with a stern face, scanned the documents before glancing at both of us. "This hearing is to determine temporary custody of Emily and Jacob Dawson," she began. "Mr. Dawson, your petition cites infidelity, reckless spending, and abandonment of the marital home. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Mark replied. Amanda's lawyer, a slick, overly confident guy named Tanner, stood up, his tone dripping with condescension. "Your Honor, Mrs. Dawson vehemently denies these accusations. She asserts that Mr. Dawson has been neglectful, emotionally abusive, and has a history of aggressive behavior." My fists clenched under the table, but I forced myself to stay calm. Mark glanced at me, giving a subtle nod to keep it together. The judge raised an eyebrow. Mr. Tanner, do you have evidence to support these claims? Tanner hesitated, clearly caught off guard. Your Honor, Mrs. Dawson has provided testimony of feeling threatened and unsupported. Mark stood up, unfazed. Your Honor, we have documented proof that Mrs. Dawson has been engaging in an extramarital affair for several months, using joint funds to finance her relationship with her lover. We also have records of her plans to take the children without Mr. Dawson's consent. The judge gestured for Mark to continue, and he handed over the evidence packet. The judge skimmed through it, her expression tightening. We would also like to point out, Mark added, that Mrs. Dawson's accusations against my client are unsubstantiated and appear to be retaliatory in nature. Furthermore, our financial audit shows extensive misuse of marital assets. Amanda's face turned pale, and even Nick looked uncomfortable. Tanner stammered, trying to regain composure. Your Honor, these accusations are exaggerated. Mrs. Dawson only sought comfort because she felt abandoned by her husband. The judge cut him off with a raised hand. Regardless of emotional circumstances, the use of marital funds to support an affair is deeply concerning. Given the evidence presented and the lack of credible defense from Mrs. Dawson, I am inclined to grant temporary sole custody to Mr. Dawson, pending further investigation. I almost couldn't believe it. Relief crashed over me like a wave, but I kept my face stoic, refusing to let Amanda see just how much she'd lost. The judge continued, issuing an order for Amanda to vacate the marital home and cease contact with the children until the investigation concluded. Amanda shot up from her seat, her face a mask of fury. This isn't fair. He's manipulating you. He doesn't deserve them. The judge gave her a cold stare. Mrs. Dawson, any further outbursts will result in contempt of court. I watched Amanda's defiance crumble, replaced by a helpless rage. Nick put a hand on her shoulder, whispering something that only made her angrier. The judge banged the gavel, signaling the end of the hearing. As I walked out, Mark patted my shoulder. You did it, Dave. You stood your ground. But I knew it wasn't over. Amanda wasn't the type to just give up. She'd come at me harder than ever. But for now, I had my kids, and I wasn't about to let her poison them with her lies and chaos. Outside the courtroom, I glanced back to see Amanda staring at me, eyes blazing with hatred. I gave her one last look, a cold, resolute glare, before walking out the doors. I wasn't afraid anymore. She tried to destroy me, but I fought back. And I wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. Victory tasted bitter. I had won the first battle, but the war wasn't over. As I drove home from the courthouse, the reality of what just happened sank in. I'd secured temporary custody of my kids, but I knew Amanda wouldn't take it lying down. She was stubborn, proud to the point of insanity, and the thought of losing control would eat at her like a parasite. Back at the house, I parked the car and just sat there for a moment, staring at the place that was once a home. It didn't feel like one anymore. The laughter and warmth had been replaced by tension and betrayal. I couldn't let it stay that way. I needed to rebuild, not just for me but for Emily and Jacob. As I got out, I spotted Nancy's car pulling up to the curb. My first instinct was to brace myself for another round of family drama, but she stepped out looking genuinely remorseful. She approached slowly, holding a box. Dave, can we talk? She asked, her voice uncertain. I hesitated, then nodded, figuring it couldn't make things worse. What's in the box? She handed it to me. Amanda's stuff. I didn't know where else to put it. She's staying with that guy now. Nick. I thought maybe you'd want to look through it before I got rid of it. I almost laughed at the irony, her own mother practically disowning her. Thanks, Nancy, I muttered, not really knowing what else to say. She fidgeted, looking down at her feet. I had no idea she was doing all this, Dave. I didn't raise her to be like that. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I replied, forcing myself to sound forgiving even though the anger still simmered just beneath the surface. She made her choices. Now she has to live with them. Nancy nodded, giving me a sad smile. You're right. Just take care of the kids. They need you more than ever. I gave her a tight nod before she walked back to her car, glancing over her shoulder one last time before driving off. I carried the box inside, setting it on the kitchen counter. Curiosity gnawed at me, so I opened it. Inside were Amanda's old journals, some family photos, and a few random trinkets. I didn't want to go through it right then, but something caught my eye, a small black notebook with a combination lock. My gut told me it was important. I tried a few numbers, the kids' birthdays, our anniversary, until it finally clicked open. The pages were filled with messy handwriting, venting about our marriage, her dissatisfaction, and then details about her affair. Times, places, she'd recorded it all like some twisted diary. I couldn't believe it. She documented every secret meeting, every lie she told me, even her plans to eventually cut me off completely. It was like reading a psychopath's manifesto. My chest tightened as I skimmed through it, my anger igniting all over again. She'd been planning to move out of state with Nick, to start a new life once the custody battle was over. My blood ran cold as I realized how close I'd come to losing everything. If I hadn't caught her, if I hadn't fought back, she would have disappeared with the kids, and I might never have seen them again. I knew what I had to do. I scanned the pages and took pictures of every entry, saving them to my phone. This was more than just evidence. It was proof of premeditation, of her intention to abduct the kids without my consent. My phone buzzed, a message from Mark. Mark, got a tip from a friend at the precinct. Amanda tried to file a restraining order against you. It didn't stick. No evidence. Just a heads up. Of course. Typical Amanda, grasping at anything to make herself look like the victim. I replied to Mark, telling him about the notebook and promising to bring it to his office. He agreed that it would solidify my case for permanent custody. Later that night, as I was tucking the kids into bed, Emily looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes. "Daddy, is Mommy coming back?" she whispered. I forced a smile, brushing her hair back gently. "I don't know, sweetheart. But you're safe here. I promise." She nodded, not pushing it further, and soon both kids were fast asleep. I watched them for a long moment, my heart aching. I never wanted this chaos for them. I never wanted them to feel like they had to choose sides or wonder why Mommy and Daddy didn't love each other anymore. As I sat down in the living room, my mind raced with everything that had happened. Amanda's betrayal, her reckless plans, the ugly courtroom battle, it all swirled around me like a toxic cloud. I thought about confronting her again, making her see the damage she'd done. But I knew it would be pointless. Amanda didn't see reason, she saw obstacles. And right now, I was just one more hurdle in her way. I needed to keep building my case, to make sure the judge saw the truth. I couldn't afford to get complacent. Mark had warned me that family court could be unpredictable, and despite the evidence, Amanda would do anything to make me look like the monster. The next day, I took the notebook to Mark's office, showing him the contents. He flipped through it, eyebrows raised in disbelief. "This is gold," he muttered. She practically incriminated herself. If the judge sees this, it's game over for her. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. Good. I want to make sure she never pulls something like this again. I want my kids to feel safe. Mark nodded, tucking the notebook into his briefcase. "I'll get copies made and submitted to the court. Stay vigilant, Dave. She's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things." As I drove back home, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was one step ahead. Amanda thought she could manipulate everyone, twist the story to fit her version of events. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. I knew I couldn't let my guard down. Amanda would lash out when she realized she was losing control. She wouldn't go quietly. I could feel it. The storm wasn't over. But for the first time, I was ready to face it head on. And I'd be damned if I let her destroy everything I'd fought to protect. A week passed in uneasy silence. The calm was unsettling, like waiting for a bomb to go off. I kept my guard up, staying vigilant with every step. I dropped the kids at school, went to work, and kept my phone charged and ready in case Amanda tried anything stupid. I had to keep it together for the kids' sake, but the tension gnawed at me constantly. One evening, just as I was about to start dinner, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Mark. I answered immediately, bracing for bad news. "Dave, I just got word from the court. Amanda filed for an appeal to regain temporary custody," Mark said, his voice firm and steady. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. "On what grounds?" "She's claiming emotional distress and parental alienation. She's accusing you of turning the kids against her and mentally abusing them." Rage shot through me like a bolt of lightning. "That's insane. I've done nothing but protect them from her chaos." "I know," Mark assured me. "She's grasping at straws. The judge isn't stupid. We just need to present the evidence again, and her appeal will be shot down. But be prepared, she's going to try and manipulate the narrative. Don't give her anything she can use." I thanked him and hung up, tension coiling in my gut like a snake. Of course, she wouldn't let it go. She couldn't handle losing control. She was going to push until something snapped. And that snap came sooner than I expected. Around midnight, I woke to the sound of glass shattering downstairs. My heart leapt into my throat as I bolted upright. I grabbed the baseball, but I kept under the bed and crept down the hallway, ears straining for any noise. A muffled voice drifted from the living room, followed by heavy footsteps. I gripped the bat tighter, peeking around the corner, and my heart nearly stopped. Amanda was standing there, half-drunk and wild-eyed, with Nick at her side. His arm was draped over her shoulders, and they were both laughing like lunatics. My living room window was shattered, shards of glass scattered across the floor. I stepped forward, keeping the bat lowered, but ready. "What the hell are you doing here?" I growled. Amanda looked at me with a vicious smirk. "This is my house too, Dave. You think you can just keep me out? Think again." Nick puffed up his chest, trying to look intimidating. "Yeah, man. You can't just lock her out of her own place. You got no right." I ignored him, focusing on Amanda. "You broke into the house. You're trespassing. Leave now, or I'm calling the cops." She sneered, staggering closer. "Go ahead. Call them. I'll tell them you attacked me. Who do you think they'll believe? The poor mother trying to see her kids, or the psycho ex waving a bat around?" My hands tightened on the bat, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You think breaking in is going to make you look good in court? You've already lost custody, Amanda. You keep pulling stunts like this, and the judge will never let you near the kids again." She laughed bitterly. "You ruined my life. You made me look like a monster. You think you're better than me, don't you?" I gritted my teeth, refusing to let her bait me. "You did this to yourself. You cheated, lied, and abandoned your family. Own it for once in your life." Nick stepped forward, clearly drunk and itching for a fight. "Back off, dude. She ain't yours anymore. She's with me now." I shot him a cold glare. "This has nothing to do with you. Take your trash and get out before I call the cops." Amanda shoved him aside, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You don't get to take my kids from me. I carried them. I raised them. And you're just some worthless paycheck that showed up at night." I felt the anger boiling over, but I didn't move. I couldn't give her the reaction she wanted. Instead, I pulled out my phone and hit record, holding it up where they could see. "This is all being recorded," I stated firmly. "If you don't leave, I'll have evidence of you breaking and entering, trespassing, and harassment." "You think the court's gonna like that, Amanda?" Her face twisted into a snarl, and she lunged at me, but Nick held her back. "Babe, chill. You're gonna make it worse." She yanked free from his grip, spitting out more venom. "You'll regret this, Dave. I'll make sure everyone knows how pathetic you are, how you destroyed our family." I kept the camera steady, unmoved by her hysteria. "Last chance. Get out before I call the police." She hesitated, glancing at the phone, realizing she'd lost this round. Fury burned in her eyes, but she finally turned to Nick, muttering something under her breath. He glared at me one last time before guiding her out the door, slamming it behind them. I locked the door, heart pounding, and checked the recording. It had captured everything: the threats, the break-in, and her unstable behavior. It was more than enough to secure my case. Once I calmed down, I called Mark, telling him about the incident. He instructed me to file a police report and send him the footage. As I ended the call, I couldn't help but feel both exhausted and victorious. Amanda's recklessness was digging her own grave, and all I had to do was stay calm and keep documenting every slip-up. The next morning, I took the footage to the police and filed a report for trespassing and property damage. I made sure to get a copy for my records and send it to Mark. The cops assured me they'd follow up, but I knew Amanda would try something else soon. She couldn't stand losing. But as the days passed, she went silent. No more calls, no texts, not even through Leah. It was eerie, but I didn't lower my guard. Mark called me a week later with news. "The court issued a restraining order against Amanda," he said, satisfaction in his voice. "She's not allowed within 100 yards of the house or the kids." Her stunt with Nick sealed it. She lost any remaining credibility she had. Relief flooded me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. "What about custody?" "We're moving forward with full custody for you. Her actions make it clear she's not fit to be a parent." "You did good, Dave. You kept your cool and let her destroy herself." I hung up, staring at the peaceful living room, the sunlight streaming in through the unbroken windows. It was finally over. Amanda's manipulation, her chaos, it was done. I still had battles ahead, like helping my kids heal and rebuilding our lives, but I knew we'd get through it together. I took a deep breath and walked upstairs to check on Emily and Jacob. They were coloring together, laughing about something only they understood. Seeing them happy made every fight worth it. As I leaned against the doorframe, I couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude. I'd almost lost everything, but I fought back, refusing to let Amanda's selfishness destroy our family. I wasn't the weak man she made me out to be. I was stronger than I ever knew. And I'd make damn sure my kids knew it too.